This video is going to be going over the resistance scale and the RPM targets that I use and call out throughout my spin classes so that you have a better understanding of what I am talking about. I know it can be overwhelming, and every spin instructor on YouTube tends to use a different scale. So first and foremost, the numbers that I call out are just targets. So if you can't hit those RPM targets like 80 to 100, 100 to 120, that is fine. These are just like things to strive for and to guide you as far as what we're doing in the workout, because sometimes you can fall asleep. You don't know what rep we're on, but then you can just look at the RPMs, and if they're pretty high, you'll be like, okay, we're sprinting. If they're lower, then you know that you need to up the tension. So that is that about RPMs, just targets. And if you don't have a meter or a scale to measure that on your bike, that's fine as well. Just make sure that a sprint feels like a sprint, you're getting that fast turnover, and a climb feels like you're going uphill. Don't overthink it. The resistance scale that I use is on a scale of 1 to 10. And we never really go to 1 or 2. We've never gone to 1 or 2 because you always want to have some kind of pushback, some kind of tension on your bike so that you're not bouncing around. You have control behind the wheel, and it's just a better use of your time. You want to have some kind of resistance. So we always start at level 3 out of 10. This scale is subjective. So it doesn't matter if you have fixed adjustments of resistance on your bike. It's based on you, yourself, your fitness level. Even within a workout, you might have to adjust it, and you'll find that as you over time get stronger, your resistance scale of what you usually turn the knob to is going to increase because you're getting stronger. So 3 out of 10 is our baseline, our warm-up tension, our resting tension, where you stop bouncing around in the saddle, but it doesn't feel like you're climbing. That's the perfect 3 out of 10. So always start there. You can take off all the resistance on your bike and then slowly add more until you get more control and you feel like you're not just like bouncing around like crazy. That's your 3 out of 10. Moving on to 4 out of 10. This is still kind of a warm-up resistance. It's not giving you that much pushback. You still don't feel like you're climbing at all, but you have enough pushback so that when you start to increase your turnover, your cadence, you still have control. So that's your stride tension. Your stride resistance is 4 out of 10. We use that in the warm-up. We add some quick little pick-me-ups, some sprints, strides, not quite a full-out sprint, but just enough tension to give you that control. That's a 4 out of 10. Moving on, add a little bit more resistance, and you found your 5 out of 10. This is our seated sprint tension because, again, you get a little bit more pushback, so you have control behind the wheel when you start to hit those higher RPMs of 100 plus. 100 plus is where you're generally sprinting. That is going to require more tension. So 5 out of 10 is your seated sprint tension. That's not going to be enough tension to give you control when you rise out of the saddle. So 5 out of 10s are always in the saddle. This is also something that you might hear me say is tempo tension, because it's not quite too heavy that it feels like you're climbing, but you can still kind of rest. It's like an active rest, an 80% effort rest. It's kind of like the tension where you're still working, but you're able to maintain it for a good chunk of time. So that's your tempo tension. Your seated sprinting tension is 5 out of 10. Moving on to 6 out of 10. This is where we start to feel a little bit more pushback. But again, it's not so much tension that you feel like you're climbing yet. But you have enough pushback so that when you're going more aggressive with those sprints, that you can still have control with hitting that 100 to 120. And it's also the tension where you still feel like you're sprinting, but you have control when you rise out of the saddle. So 6 out of 10, seated sprints and standing sprints. Level 7 out of 10. This is where we get on the border between it feels like a climb, but sometimes we try to sprint at this resistance. I don't know if it actually comes to fruition, but we try. So that 7 out of 10, we do climbs in the saddle. We rise and do tempos out of the saddle. We do power sprints in the saddle. So that's where we have that climbing tension at 7 out of 10. So again, it's the tension where you just start to feel like you're climbing, you're pushing, you're really working. You don't feel like you could necessarily maintain sprinting at that level for a long period of time. But when you want to get those watts up there, we use a 7 out of 10 tension for sprinting in the saddle in full throttle, which is all out sprinting out of the saddle. 7 out of 10. So you'll hear me say full throttle, power sprints, seated climbs, that's level 7 in the saddle. So it's pretty heavy, 7 out of 10. If you think about that on a scale that you make up in your head, that's going to be a good amount of resistance. Levels 8, 9, and 10 are all out of the saddle climbing. I think there's one workout, the 6 workout, where we did level 8 in the saddle. I generally don't like to do level 8s out of 10s in the saddle because that's where it can get a little dicey as far as making sure that you're not putting too much strain on your knees when you're seated at such a heavy tension. So I just try to stay away from that now, just in case people don't want to adjust their tension and they just abide by the rules of the class. So generally, level 8 and level 9 are out of the saddle climbing. So it's where you rise and now you have that heavier resistance so that it really feels like you're climbing when you're out of the saddle and you have more of that body weight that you're using to give you more power so you can get more tension under your legs because you're using your body weight now to move those pedals. So level 8, level 9 out of the saddle, and something that I have really implemented a lot lately in my rides is level 8 power climb. So that's when you have that heavier tension, level 8 out of 10. But you are really pushing those RPMs, and we generally only hold this for about 15 seconds, maybe 30. I don't know. 30 is the most we would ever hold a power climb. Maybe that'll change as we get stronger. But so level 8 power climb or regular climb out of the saddle. And then level 9 is usually the heaviest tension we'll go because it's where it's basically a level 9. It's basically your level 10 is what I always say. It's where you can just get enough RPMs under your feet. You can move your feet fast enough to move those pedals within the 60 to 80 RPM range. If you fall outside of that RPM target, that's fine. But it's where that's the heaviest tension you could theoretically go and still kind of move those pedals. That's your level 9. Level 10 out of 10, we generally would only hold that for about 5 seconds, and it's a fun time. Your heaviest tension yet. So that explains the scale. If you have any questions, post them down below. And I hope to see you at some future rides. Hello Beginner Ride is the best place to start on my channel, I think. And the recovery rides. So Reset and Vienna are great beginner rides as well. Fast and Free, the 10-minute ride, is another great beginner ride. And Honeybee. So the fully seated rides are also great beginner rides because we really don't go too heavy at the tension. Like I said, in the saddle, I like to keep it at levels 3, 4, 5, and 6 and 7. So that wraps up this video, and I'll see you guys in the saddle. Bye, guys. Oh, if you want more rides, join my membership. $2.99 for more rides.